T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6,